Everyone mocked the cleaning lady until the billionaire revealed she owns the building. Before we start, tell us in the comments, what city are you watching from? And stay until the end to rate this story from 0 to 10. The cleaning lady pushed her cart through the marble lobby of the Sterling Tower, the most exclusive business address in Manhattan. Victoria Chen wore a faded blue uniform and kept her eyes down as executives in $1,000 suits brushed past her like she was invisible. But Victoria Chen wasn't what she seemed. She was testing them. All of them. And only one person would pass. What happened next would expose the darkest truths about human nature and prove that real power doesn't announce itself. It watches, waits, and reveals itself when the moment is perfect. Victoria had been working as a cleaning lady in Sterling Tower for 3 months. Every morning at 6 a.m. she arrived in her worn sneakers and old uniform, her graying hair pulled back in a simple bun. She mopped floors, emptied trash cans, and scrubbed toilets while the city's elite conducted their million-dollar deals above her head. No one knew the truth. Victoria Chen owned the entire building, all 42 floors of prime Manhattan real estate. Her late husband, Thomas Chen, had built his fortune in commercial development and left her everything when he passed away, suddenly 2 years ago. The Sterling Tower was the crown jewel of his empire, worth over $300 million. But grief had taught Victoria something darker about humanity. At Thomas's funeral, she'd watched people who claimed to be friends circle like vultures. Business partners wanted immediate meetings about transitions. Distant relatives she'd never met suddenly appeared with heartfelt condolences and subtle questions about the will. Even some of Thomas's employees saw his death as an opportunity for advancement. The vultures had disgusted her. So Victoria had made a decision. She would disappear into her own building. She would work as a cleaning lady, the most invisible job in the corporate world, and watch. She would see how people treated those they perceived as beneath them. She would discover who had genuine character and who wore empathy like a designer suit, expensive and just for show. Her lawyer, James Morrison, had tried to talk her out of it. "Mrs. Chen, this is excessive," James had said in his office, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses. "You don't need to scrub toilets to evaluate tenant character. We have background checks, references. Background checks don't reveal souls." "James," Victoria had interrupted quietly, "my husband always said you learn everything about a person by watching how they treat a waiter, or in this case, a cleaning lady." James had sighed but prepared the paperwork. Victoria Chen legally became Vicky Chen on the building's employment records. Her wealth was hidden behind layers of trusts and shell companies. To everyone in Sterling Tower, she was just another immigrant cleaning lady trying to make ends meet. The test had begun. Victoria had learned quickly that being invisible meant witnessing cruelty in its purest form. Marcus Wellington, the hedge fund manager on the 38th floor, regularly threw his Starbucks cups at her cart. "Faster, cleaning lady. Some of us have real work to do." He'd once accidentally knocked over her entire bucket of mop water and laughed as she cleaned it up on her hands and knees. Jessica Thornton, the fashion executive on the 29th floor, treated Victoria like she was diseased. "Don't touch my desk. Don't breathe near my papers. Actually, can you come back when I'm not here? The smell of cleaning products gives me a migraine." Jessica had complained 3 times to building management about Victoria's unprofessional appearance. Daniel Rodriguez, the tech entrepreneur on the 35th floor, was perhaps the worst. He'd nicknamed her the Ghost because she was so insignificant she might as well not exist. He'd told this joke loudly in the elevator with Victoria standing right there, and everyone had laughed. 3 months of being dismissed, degraded and dehumanized. Victoria documented everything in a small notebook she kept in her cart. Names, dates, incidents. She told herself she was gathering data for future leasing decisions. In reality, each cruel interaction cut deeper than she wanted to admit. Sometimes, late at night while mopping the empty corridors, Victoria wondered if she'd made a mistake. Maybe James was right. Maybe this test was excessive. Maybe she was just torturing herself. Then she remembered Thomas's words, "The true measure of any society is how it treats its most vulnerable members." She would keep going. On a Tuesday morning in late September, everything changed. Victoria was cleaning the lobby bathroom when she heard excited whispers from the management office. "Alexander Steele is taking the entire 40th floor. The Alexander Steele, the tech billionaire, started his first company at 19, sold it for $2 billion by 25. Now he's worth over $10 billion. Forbes just did a cover story on him." Victoria felt her stomach tighten. Another billionaire. Another person who would probably treat her like furniture. The next day, Alexander Steele arrived. He was younger than Victoria expected, maybe 35, with dark hair that was slightly too long, and an easy smile that seemed genuine. He wore jeans and a simple black sweater instead of a suit. He carried his own boxes instead of having assistants do it, and when he nearly collided with Victoria in the hallway, he did something nobody else had done in 3 months. He apologized. "Oh, I'm so sorry I wasn't watching where I was going," Alexander said, steadying Victoria's cart that had almost tipped over. "Are you okay? I didn't hurt you, did I?" Victoria stood frozen. Executives didn't apologize to cleaning ladies. They didn't make eye contact. They didn't ask if they were okay. I'm fine," she managed to say. Alexander smiled and extended his hand. "I'm Alexander. I just moved into the 40th floor. I'm going to be seeing a lot of you, I think. What's your name?" Victoria stared at his outstretched hand like it was a foreign object. When was the last time someone had offered to shake her hand? She slowly reached out. "Vicky," she said quietly. "At Vicky Chen." "Nice to meet you, Vicky Chen." His handshake was firm and warm. "If I'm ever in your way while you're working, just tell me. I promise I'll move. I've got 2 left feet sometimes." He walked away whistling, leaving Victoria standing in the hallway with a strange warmth spreading through her chest. It was probably nothing, she told herself, just basic politeness. It didn't mean anything. But deep down, she felt a tiny spark of hope. Maybe not everyone would fail her test. Over the next 2 weeks, Victoria observed Alexander Steele carefully. She was waiting for the mask to slip, for his politeness to reveal itself as performance, for him to show his true colors like everyone else. But something strange kept happening. He kept being kind. Every morning when Victoria emptied the trash in his office, Alexander greeted her by name. "Morning, Vicky. How are you today?" he asked, like he actually wanted to know. When she gave standard responses, "Fine, thank you," he'd follow up. "Yeah? How's the weather treating you? I heard it might rain later. Do you have an umbrella?" He asked about her umbrella. One Thursday, Victoria was struggling to move a heavy box that someone had left blocking the service elevator. She was tugging at it, her back straining. When Alexander appeared, Whoa, let me help!" He immediately grabbed the other end. "Who left this here? This is a safety hazard. You could have hurt yourself." Together they moved the box. Alexander was slightly out of breath, his expensive watch catching the light as he wiped his forehead. "Thank you, Mr. Steele," Victoria said. "Alexander, please." "And you're welcome, but seriously, if you see something this heavy again, call someone. That's what I'm here for." He paused. "Well, not literally. I'm terrible at moving things, but you know what I mean." Victoria almost smiled. Was he making self-deprecating jokes? Billionaires didn't do that. Billionaires didn't help cleaning ladies move boxes. The observations continued. The differences between Alexander and the other tenants became stark. Marcus Wellington called Victoria into his office one afternoon. She steeled herself for another humiliation. "Clean lady, I need you to organize my bookshelf alphabetically," Marcus barked without looking up from his phone. "And then I need you to go pick up my dry cleaning. It's 3 blocks away. Be back in 30 minutes. "Sir, I'm not supposed to leave the building during—" "Did I ask what you're supposed to do?" Marcus's voice went cold. I pay a fortune to be in this building. You work for me. Now go get my dry cleaning or I'll have you fired." Victoria went, her face burning with humiliation. When she returned with his clothes, Marcus didn't even thank her. He just waved her away like she was a fly. Meanwhile, on the 40th floor, Alexander had noticed his office trash hadn't been emptied yet. Instead of complaining, he emptied it himself, then went looking for Victoria to make sure she was okay. He found her in the stairwell, sitting on the steps with tears in her eyes. "Vicky," Alexander's voice was gentle. "What happened?" "Nothing. I'm fine. I should get back to work." "You're not fine. Someone hurt you." It wasn't a question. Victoria looked up at this billionaire who was crouching beside her on a dirty stairwell, genuine concern in his eyes. A dam broke inside her. Why do people think they can treat others like garbage just because they have money? The words tumbled out before she could stop them. Why does having a corner office mean you can humiliate someone who's just trying to work? Alexander sat down beside her on the step. Because some people measure their worth by how far above others they can climb, it makes them feel powerful to punch down. That's cruel. Yes, it is. Alexander pulled out his phone and pulled up something. "My mom was a janitor, single mother, worked 3 jobs to raise me. I watched people treat her the way they probably treat you. I watched her come home crying some nights because someone had called her stupid or worthless or invisible." He showed Victoria his phone. It was a photo of a smiling woman in a cleaning uniform, her arm around a teenage boy in a too big graduation gown. "That's the day I graduated high school. First person in my family to graduate anything." Alexander's voice was thick with emotion. "She died 2 years later, cancer. I just started my first company. I didn't make enough money yet to save her." Victoria felt tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "Me too." Alexander put his phone away. "But I learned something from her. She used to say, 'Alex, how you treat people when you have nothing tells me who you are. But how you treat people when you have everything, that's your soul.'" They sat in silence for a moment. "Whoever made you cry today?" Alexander stood up and offered Victoria his hand. "They're going to answer to me. What's their name?" "No, please, I can't afford to lose this job." "Vicky?" Alexander's voice was firm but kind. "Nobody gets to abuse my friends. And we're friends now, okay? So tell me who it was." Victoria felt something crack open in her chest. When was the last time someone had defended her? When was the last time someone called her a friend? "Marcus Wellington," she said quietly. 38th floor. Alexander's jaw tightened. "The hedge fund guy, got it?" The next morning, Marcus Wellington got a visitor. Alexander Steele walked into Marcus's corner office without knocking. Marcus looked up, annoyed, then recognized who it was and scrambled to his feet. "Mr. Steele, what an unexpected pleasure. I was actually hoping to—" "Cut the crap, Marcus!" Alexander's voice was ice. "I heard you sent one of the cleaning staff to pick up your dry cleaning yesterday, and that you threatened her job when she said it wasn't in her job description." Marcus's face went red. That was just a misunderstanding. She's a bit sensitive. You know how these people—" "These people?" Alexander stepped closer. "Finish that sentence. I dare you." Marcus swallowed hard. "I just meant the staff. They sometimes—" "Vicky Chen is a person, a human being doing her job. She doesn't work for you personally. She works for this building, and you will treat her with respect, or you'll find yourself looking for new office space. Do I make myself clear?" "You can't tell me—" "I can, and I am." Alexander pulled out his phone. "I'm friends with the building owner. One phone call and your lease is terminated. Want to test me?" Victoria, who was cleaning in the hallway and heard everything, felt her heart race. Alexander thought he was friends with the building owner. He thought he could call them. He didn't know he was defending the actual owner. Marcus's face went pale. "That won't be necessary. I apologize. It won't happen again. Not to me. To Vicky." Alexander opened the door. "Vicky, could you come in here, please?" Victoria entered, her heart pounding. Marcus looked like he was swallowing glass. I apologize for my behavior yesterday. It was inappropriate. It won't happen again." The words were forced, but they were there. Alexander nodded. "See that it doesn't." He turned to Victoria. "You okay?" She nodded, not trusting her voice. After they left Marcus's office, Victoria turned to Alexander in the hallway. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did." Alexander smiled. "Besides, I meant what I said." "We're friends, and friends protect each other." For the first time in 3 months, Victoria felt something other than anger or sadness. She felt hope. A week later, Alexander knocked on the door of the janitor's closet where Victoria was organizing supplies. "Hey, Vicky, you got a minute?" Victoria looked up, startled. "Is something wrong?" No, I'm completely useless at making coffee, and the fancy machine they installed in my office might as well be a spaceship. I've been drinking terrible coffee for a week." He gave her a sheepish grin. "I noticed you have a coffee maker in here, and I was wondering if you'd take pity on me and show me how normal human coffee is made." Victoria blinked. A billionaire was asking her for coffee advice. Sure, I can show you." What followed was probably the strangest 20 minutes of Victoria's life. She and Alexander Steele sat in the janitor's closet, drinking coffee from slightly chipped mugs, while she showed him how to use a basic coffee maker. "See? You just put the grounds here, water there, press this button." "There's a button?" Alexander laughed. "I've been trying to program the damn thing like it's NASA equipment. Oh my God, I'm an idiot." Victoria found herself laughing too. "The expensive ones are too complicated. This one just makes coffee." "Best coffee I've had in weeks," Alexander said, taking a sip. "So, tell me about yourself, Vicky. What's your story?" And somehow, in that tiny closet smelling of cleaning supplies, Victoria found herself talking. Not everything, of course. She told him a version of the truth, that she was a widow, that her husband had died 2 years ago, that she'd needed to work to keep herself busy. "I'm sorry about your husband," Alexander said gently. "What was his name?" "Thomas. Tell me about him." So Victoria did. She told Alexander about Thomas's laugh, about his obsession with building things, about how he'd always treated everyone with respect regardless of their position. She told him about the hole Thomas had left in her life. "He sounds like he was a good man," Alexander said. "He was the best man." Victoria felt tears prick her eyes. "I miss him every day." Alexander reached over and squeezed her hand. The gesture was so simple, so kind, that Victoria almost broke down completely. "I'm sorry," she said, pulling her hand back. "I shouldn't be talking about this with you. You have work to do." "Vicky!" Alexander's voice was firm. "You're not bothering me, and your grief doesn't have an expiration date. Take all the time you need." They talked for another hour. Alexander told her about his mother, about building his first company in a garage, about how success had brought him more loneliness than happiness. "Everyone wants something from me now," he said quietly. "Investment opportunities, partnerships, introductions. I can't tell who's genuinely interested in me versus who just sees a walking ATM machine." Victoria understood that feeling more than Alexander knew. Over the next few weeks, Victoria and Alexander fell into an unlikely friendship. He started taking his coffee breaks in the janitor's closet. They'd sit on overturned buckets, drinking terrible coffee, talking about everything and nothing. Alexander told her about his latest project, an education technology platform for underprivileged kids. Victoria told him about the mystery novels she loved to read. One day, Victoria was singing softly to herself while mopping the 40th floor corridor. She had a terrible voice, flat and off-key, but it kept her company during the long days. Is that Bohemian Rhapsody?" Alexander appeared in his doorway, grinning. Victoria froze, mortified. "I'm so sorry. I didn't think anyone could hear." No, it was great. Very unique interpretation." His eyes sparkled with amusement. "You've got a really distinctive voice." "That's a polite way of saying I sing like a dying cat." Alexander burst out laughing. "I wasn't going to say that, but since you brought it up..." He stepped into the hallway. "My turn. Want to hear something really bad? Before Victoria could protest, Alexander launched into the worst rendition of Don't Stop Believin' she'd ever heard. His voice cracked on the high notes. He forgot half the words. He ended with a dramatic air guitar solo. Victoria laughed so hard she had to lean on her mop. See? Alexander was laughing too. Now we're even. We're both terrible singers. I think you might be worse than me. Definitely worse. I got kicked out of my high school choir. They said I was vocally distracting. These moments of lightness felt like oxygen after 3 months of suffocation. One evening, Victoria was working late. The building was mostly empty. She was mopping the 40th floor when she heard a crash from Alexander's office, followed by a string of creative cursing. She rushed in to find him standing in the middle of broken glass, his hand bleeding. "Don't move!" Victoria set her mop aside. "Stay right there!" She carefully picked her way through the glass and examined his hand. The cut wasn't deep, but it was bleeding steadily. What happened? I was reaching for a file on the top shelf, knocked over my water glass, tried to catch it, failed spectacularly. Alexander looked embarrassed. I'm smooth like that. Victoria got her first aid kit from her cart and carefully cleaned the wound. Alexander watched her hands work. You're good at this. I raised 2 kids. You learn to handle injuries. The words slipped out before Victoria could stop them. You have kids? Alexander's face lit up. You never mentioned... Victoria's face fell. Had. Past tense. We're not close anymore. Vicky. They didn't approve of Thomas. He came from nothing, built everything himself. My children thought I'd married beneath my station. Victoria's voice cracked. After he died, they came to the funeral once, then disappeared. I think they were disappointed I didn't need their help. Or their money. Alexander's hand came up to cup her face, gently tilting it so she'd look at him. Their loss? Truly, you're incredible. Victoria's breath caught. Alexander's hand was warm against her cheek. His eyes were so kind. They were standing very close, too close. She was suddenly aware of the intimacy of the moment, her hands wrapped around his injured hand, his thumb brushing her cheekbone, the empty building around them. Mr. Steele. Alexander, he corrected softly. Alexander, this isn't... Victoria stepped back. We come from different worlds. Do we? Alexander's voice was gentle, but challenging. Because from where I'm standing, we're both just people, both lonely, both looking for something real in a world full of fakes. You're a billionaire. So? My mom was a janitor. Money doesn't change who I am inside. And it definitely doesn't change how I feel about... He stopped himself. About the people I care about. Victoria felt her heart hammering. This was dangerous. She was lying to him. He didn't know who she really was. If she let this continue, if she let herself feel what she was starting to feel, it would only end in heartbreak. I need to finish cleaning, she said, her voice shaking slightly. Alexander nodded, disappointment flickering across his face. Of course. Thank you for patching me up. Any time. As Victoria left his office, she felt his eyes on her back. She was in trouble. Real trouble. She was falling for Alexander Steele. And he was falling for someone who didn't exist. Jessica Thornton, Marcus Wellington, and Daniel Rodriguez had noticed Alexander Steele's friendship with the cleaning lady. And they didn't like it. It's embarrassing, Jessica said over drinks at an exclusive bar. The man is a billionaire, and he's having coffee breaks with the help. It makes the whole building look low class. I heard he defended her when Marcus made her run errands, Daniel added. Threatened to have Marcus evicted. Over a cleaning lady. Marcus's face was still red with humiliation. Someone needs to show Steele who he's really defending. That woman is playing him. I guarantee she's after his money. Probably planning to sue for sexual harassment or something, Jessica agreed. We should warn him, as a courtesy. But their real motivation was simpler. Alexander Steele had rejected all of them. He'd turned down Marcus's investment pitch, declined Jessica's dinner invitation, and ignored Daniel's networking attempts. If they couldn't have access to his money and power, They'd make sure nobody could, especially not a cleaning lady who'd somehow succeeded where they'd failed. They spent 2 weeks planning their attack. Daniel hacked into the building's employee records and found Vicky Chen's file. Sparse information. Immigrant status, hired 3 months ago. Nothing particularly suspicious, but nothing particularly impressive either. We need something concrete, Marcus insisted. Something that proves she's a gold digger. Jessica had an idea. What if we catch her stealing, plant something expensive in her cart, then discover it? Alexander can't defend her if she's a thief. It was cruel. It was calculated. It was perfect. On a Tuesday morning, Jessica placed her stolen Tiffany bracelet in Victoria's cleaning cart while Victoria was in the bathroom. Then she went to Alexander's office, tears in her eyes. "Alexander, I hate to bother you, but my bracelet is missing. It was my grandmother's, irreplaceable. I'm devastated." Alexander frowned. "Did you file a report with building security?" "I don't want to make accusations without proof, but—" Jessica hesitated dramatically. "I saw Vicky near my desk earlier, and I know she's your friend, but—" "Stop right there." Alexander's voice went cold. "Whatever you're implying, I'm not interested." "I'm not implying anything. I'm just saying we should check. If she didn't take it, she'll be cleared. If she did—" Jessica left the sentence hanging. Marcus and Daniel happened to be in the hallway when security confronted Victoria at her cart. "Ma'am, we've received a report of a missing item. We need to search your cart." Victoria felt her blood run cold. "Of course. But I haven't taken anything—" The security guard found the bracelet immediately. It was sitting right on top of her supplies, impossible to miss. "Ma'am, you're going to need to come with us." "I didn't take that. I've never seen that bracelet before." Victoria's voice rose in panic. "Someone planted it there." "That's what they all say," Marcus said loudly. Others were gathering now, watching the scene. "I can't believe we've had a thief working here for months." "Alexander!" Victoria looked past the security guard to where Alexander had appeared, Jessica by his side. "Alexander, please, you have to believe me." Alexander's face was unreadable. For a terrible moment, he was silent. He was thinking, calculating, remembering every story about people who'd taken advantage of him, remembering investors who'd stolen his ideas, business partners who'd betrayed him, women who'd dated him for his bank account. He was doubting, and Victoria saw it. She saw the hesitation in his eyes, the uncertainty. After everything they'd shared, after all their conversations, he was doubting her. "You hesitated," Victoria said quietly. Her voice wasn't angry. It was devastated. It was, "I see it in your face. You're not sure. Vicky, I just need a minute to— I've given you 3 months." Tears were streaming down Victoria's face now. 3 months of watching people be cruel to me. 3 months of being invisible. And the one person I thought saw me, the one person I thought understood, you're hesitating. "The evidence is right there," Jessica said, pointing to the bracelet. "I'm sorry, Alexander, but facts are facts." Victoria pulled off her cleaning gloves and dropped them on her cart. "I quit." "Vicky, wait." Alexander reached for her. "Don't." She stepped back. "My husband used to say you learn everything about a person in moments of crisis. When it's easy to believe the best of someone versus the worst. You just showed me what you chose to believe about me." "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" Victoria's voice broke. "You said your mother was a janitor. You said you understood. But when it came down to it, when you had to choose between believing me or believing them, you hesitated. And that hesitation told me everything I needed to know." She walked away, past the security guards, past the gawking crowd, past Marcus, Jessica, and Daniel, who were trying not to smile. Alexander stood frozen, watching her go. Victoria didn't go home. She went to the one place that always brought her peace, the children's hospital where she'd volunteered for years. She found her favorite kids in the playroom, little Sophie, who was 7 and fighting leukemia, Miguel, who was 10 and waiting for a heart transplant, Aisha, who was 6 and had spent more of her life in hospitals than out of them. "Miss Vicky," Sophie launched herself at Victoria's legs. "You're here. Are you crying?" Victoria wiped her eyes. "Just a sad day, sweetheart." "We have sad days, too," Miguel said seriously. "Want to play Uno? It helps." So Victoria sat on the floor of the children's hospital playroom, playing Uno with kids who faced impossible odds every day, with more grace than most adults, showed facing minor inconveniences. And slowly, the tightness in her chest began to ease. "Miss Vicky?" Aisha tugged on her sleeve. "That man outside is looking for you." Victoria looked up. Through the window, she could see Alexander Steele talking urgently to a nurse. He looked frantic. "Do you know him?" Sophie asked. "I thought I did," Victoria said quietly. "He looks sad too," Miguel observed. "Maybe he needs to play Uno." Victoria almost smiled. Maybe. But she didn't go to Alexander. She stayed with the kids until visiting hours ended, then slipped out a side exit. She'd been invisible for 3 months as a cleaning lady. Being invisible as herself should be easy. Alexander Steele hadn't become a billionaire by accepting things at face value. As soon as Victoria left, his shock wore off and his brain kicked into gear. Something wasn't right. He pulled aside the security guard. "I want to see the footage from all the cameras near Jessica Thornton's office and Vicky's cart." "Sir, that's not really—" "Oh, now, please." The security footage told the whole story. Jessica Thornton placing the bracelet in Victoria's cart. Jessica's smirk as she walked away. The timestamp showed it happened exactly 3 minutes before she'd come to Alexander's office, devastated about her missing bracelet. Alexander felt his blood turn to ice. He'd doubted Victoria, the one genuinely kind person in this godforsaken building, and he'd hesitated. Her face, when she'd said those words, "You hesitated," would haunt him forever. "Get me everything you have on Victoria Chen," Alexander told his executive assistant. "Employment records, background checks, everything." "Sir, she's just a cleaning—" "Just do it, now." What came back was strange. Sparse employment history, no digital footprint. Address that led to a modest apartment in Queens. References that were oddly generic. It was like Victoria Chen had appeared out of thin air 3 months ago. Alexander hired a private investigator. What the PI found shocked him. "Mr. Steele, I don't know how to tell you this, but there's no Victoria Chen at the address listed. The apartment is rented to a shell company, and when I dug deeper into that company, I found something interesting. It's connected to a trust. That trust is connected to a larger corporate structure. That structure owns this building." Alexander felt like he'd been punched. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying your cleaning lady owns Sterling Tower. She's the sole beneficiary of the Chen Family Trust, which controls Chen Development Corporation, which owns this building and about 24 others. She's worth somewhere north of $500 million. The world tilted. Victoria wasn't a cleaning lady. She was the owner, his landlord, one of the wealthiest women in Manhattan. And she'd been testing him. He'd failed. "Oh my God," Alexander whispered. "I'm such an idiot." Alexander called an emergency meeting. He invited every tenant in Sterling Tower to the main conference room. Marcus, Jessica, Daniel, everyone. "I know you're all wondering why you're here," Alexander said, standing at the head of the conference table. "I'm going to tell you a story about a woman named Victoria Chen." He had their attention. 3 months ago, Victoria Chen, widow of Thomas Chen, owner of Chen Development, decided to work in this building as a cleaning lady. She wanted to see how people treated those they perceived as beneath them. She wanted to see who had genuine character. Marcus's face went pale. Jessica looked like she might vomit. "Victoria Chen owns this building," Alexander continued. "She owns the ground you stand on. She signs your leases, and for 3 months you treated her like garbage." That's not possible," Daniel stammered. "She was just a what? A cleaning lady? And that makes her less human? Less deserving of respect?" Alexander's voice could have cut glass. "I have security footage of Jessica Thornton planting her bracelet in Mrs. Chen's cart. I have documentation of Marcus Wellington forcing her to run personal errands. I have testimony from a dozen other tenants about how you all treated her." The room was silent. "Your leases are terminated," Alexander said simply. "All of you. You have 30 days to vacate." "You can't do that," Marcus exploded. "You don't have that authority." "No, but I do." Everyone turned. Victoria Chen stood in the doorway. But this wasn't Vicky the cleaning lady. This was Victoria Chen in a designer suit. Her hair styled, her presence commanding. She looked like exactly what she was, a woman worth $500 million. "Hello, everyone," Victoria said calmly. "I believe we haven't been properly introduced." Victoria walked to the front of the room. Alexander stepped aside, his eyes never leaving her face. "My husband built this company from nothing," Victoria said. "He believed that how you treat people when you have power defines your character. After he died, I wanted to see if that belief was naive, if anyone would treat a cleaning lady with basic human dignity." She turned to Marcus. "You threw coffee at me. You made me pick up your dry cleaning. You threatened my job because I asked you to treat me like a human being." Marcus couldn't meet her eyes. She looked at Jessica. "You complained about my smell. You called me unprofessional. You framed me for theft rather than admit I was a better person than you." Jessica was crying now. She looked at Daniel. "You called me the ghost. You made jokes about how insignificant I was. You laughed while doing it." Daniel stared at the floor. "Your leases are terminated," Victoria said. "Consider it a lesson in karma." They fled the room, broken, humiliated, exposed. When the room cleared, only Victoria and Alexander remained. Alexander stood across from her, this woman he thought he knew, realizing he'd only seen a fraction of who she really was. "You lied to me," he said quietly. "I did." Victoria didn't flinch. "I lied to everyone. That was the point." "You said you needed to work to keep busy after your husband died." "You said everything I told you was true," Victoria interrupted. "I just omitted certain details, like the fact that I own this building, that I'm worth $500 million, that I was testing everyone, including me, especially you." Victoria's eyes were hard. "You were different from the others. Kinder, more genuine. I started to believe that maybe someone could see past the surface, see me for who I really am, not what I have. I did see you until the moment it mattered." Victoria's voice cracked. "Until the moment you had to choose between believing me or believing them. And you hesitated, Alexander. For just a moment, you thought I might be a thief. After everything we shared, everything we talked about, you doubted me." Alexander felt tears burning his eyes. "You're right, I did hesitate. For one terrible moment, I let my past experiences cloud my judgment. I've been burned so many times by people who wanted my money, who lied to me, who used me, and I let that poison what we had. So, you understand why I can't—" "But here's what you need to understand." Alexander stepped closer. "That hesitation lasted maybe 5 seconds. 5 seconds where my brain tried to reconcile what I was seeing with what I knew about you. And then I asked for the security footage. I investigated. I hired a PI. I spent every waking moment for the past week trying to prove your innocence and expose the truth." Victoria said nothing. "Do you know what I found?" Alexander continued. "I found out you're one of the richest women in New York. I found out you've been lying to me about who you are. I found out that everything I thought I knew about you was a carefully constructed test. Alexander, and you know what else I found?" His voice softened. "I found out that none of it matters. Not the money, not the test, not the lies. Because the woman I fell in love with, the woman who sang off-key while mopping, who made terrible coffee in a janitor's closet, who talked to me about grief and loss and finding real connection, that woman was real. The rest is just details." Victoria felt her breath catch. "You fell in love with me?" "Completely. Hopelessly. Inconveniently." Alexander smiled sadly. "I fell in love with a cleaning lady who turned out to be a billionaire. which is possibly the most ridiculous thing that's ever happened to me, and I once accidentally bought a haunted hotel. Despite everything, Victoria almost smiled. You bought a what? Long story, not important right now. Alexander took another step closer. What's important is that I'm standing here, in front of you, with no masks, no pretense, no games. I'm telling you that I was wrong. I hesitated when I should have defended you immediately. I let doubt creep in when I should have had absolute faith. And I will regret those 5 seconds for the rest of my life. Alexander, but I'm also telling you that I see you now. Really see you, Victoria Chen. Billionaire, cleaning lady, widow, tester of character, woman who loves mystery novels and sings terribly and makes the world's worst coffee. He reached for her hand. I see all of you, and I'm still here. I'm still in love with you. If you'll have me. Victoria looked down at their joined hands. You're not angry that I lied? Oh, I'm furious, Alexander admitted. I'm hurt and confused, and I feel like an idiot for not figuring it out sooner. But I'm also in awe of you. You created this entire test to find someone who would see past the surface, someone who would value character over status. And I almost passed. I almost got it right. Almost isn't enough. Then let me earn it. Alexander dropped to his knees, still holding her hand. Give me another chance. Let me prove that I can be the man you deserve, the man who always believes in you, who never hesitates, who sees your worth, not because of what you have, but because of who you are. Victoria looked down at this billionaire on his knees in her conference room, and something inside her broke open. Get up, she whispered. Not until you answer me. Alexander, please. I love you, Victoria Chen. I loved you when I thought you were a cleaning lady. I love you now that I know you're one of the most powerful women in Manhattan. I'll love you tomorrow when we figure out what this means. Just, please, give me another chance. Victoria pulled him to his feet. You're an idiot. I know. You hesitated. I know. I'm so sorry. You doubted me. Biggest mistake of my life. Alexander cupped her face in his hands. But I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere. You want to test me again? Test me. You want me to prove myself? I'll spend the rest of my life proving myself. Just don't walk away. Not yet. Victoria felt tears streaming down her face. I don't want to test you anymore. I'm tired of tests. I'm tired of watching people fail. I just want... What? What do you want? Something real, Victoria whispered. Someone who sees me, all of me. The broken parts, the powerful parts, the scared parts. Someone who doesn't run when things get complicated. I'm not running, Alexander said firmly. I'm standing right here, and I see you, Victoria, every beautiful, complicated, frustrating, amazing part of you. They stood there, foreheads touching, both crying, both broken, both scared. I'm falling in love with you too, Victoria admitted, and it terrifies me. Good. I'd be worried if you weren't scared. This is scary. Alexander smiled through his tears. But maybe that means it's real. Victoria laughed wetly. This is the most ridiculous situation. 2 billionaires falling in love because one pretended to be a cleaning lady? Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. He kissed her forehead gently. But I wouldn't change it. Because I got to know the real you, not the corporate titan, not the wealthy widow, just Vicky, who made terrible coffee and sang worse and somehow became the most important person in my world. We still have a lot to work through. I know. Trust doesn't rebuild overnight, but I'm patient. Alexander pulled back to look at her. And I'm not going anywhere. You're stuck with me now. Victoria smiled through her tears. Promise? Promise. He kissed her then, soft and gentle and full of hope. It was a kiss that tasted of tears and second chances. A kiss that said, I'm sorry and I love you, and we'll figure this out. When they pulled apart, Victoria rested her head against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. So what happens now? She asked. Now? Now I help you find a better cleaning lady for this building because you're terrible at it. Victoria laughed. Really laughed. I am pretty terrible at it. The worst. I've seen you miss entire corners. I was distracted. By what? You. Victoria looked up at him. You kept being kind to me. It was very distracting. Alexander grinned. Well, get used to it. I plan to be very distracting for a very long time. The children's hospital playroom was fuller than usual. Little Sophie was out of bed, her latest treatment showing promising results. Miguel had finally received his heart transplant and was recovering beautifully. Aisha was laughing, really laughing, as she played with the new toys that had mysteriously appeared last week. Victoria Chen sat on the floor among them, no longer in a cleaning uniform, but in comfortable jeans and a sweater. Alexander sat beside her, getting thoroughly beaten at Connect 4 by a 6-year-old. Miss Vicky says you're her boyfriend, Sophie announced, studying Alexander critically. Are you nice to her? I try to be, Alexander said seriously. Sometimes I mess up, though. Everyone messes up, Miguel said wisely. What matters is if you say sorry and mean it. Very true. Alexander smiled at Victoria. I said sorry, and I meant it. He did, Victoria confirmed, and he's been trying very hard to make up for it ever since. Good, Aisha declared. Because Miss Vicky is the best, and she deserves the best boyfriend. I completely agree, Alexander said. They stayed for hours, playing games and reading stories and just being present. This was where Victoria felt most like herself, not in boardrooms or penthouses, but here among kids who saw straight through to the heart of things. As they were leaving, Miguel tugged on Alexander's sleeve. Mr. Alexander, are you going to marry Miss Vicky? Alexander looked at Victoria, a question in his eyes. Would you like that? Only if she wants to marry you, Sophie said firmly. Girls get to choose. Girls definitely get to choose, Victoria agreed, her heart racing. Well, Alexander knelt down so he was eye level with the kids. Can I tell you a secret? I bought a ring last week, but I'm waiting for the perfect moment to ask her. All the kids gasped. Victoria felt tears spring to her eyes. This could be the perfect moment, Aisha suggested hopefully. Alexander laughed. You think so? Do it, do it, do it, the kids started chanting. Alexander looked up at Victoria, love shining in his eyes. They make a good point. Alexander, you don't have to. But he was already pulling out a small box from his jacket pocket. The kids went wild. Victoria Chen, Alexander said. Still kneeling? You tested my character, and I failed. You gave me a second chance, and I've tried every day to be worthy of it. You've shown me that real wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in moments like these, surrounded by people we love, doing work that matters, building something real. Victoria was crying now. I know we've only been officially together for 3 months. I know some people would say it's too soon. But I've loved you since you sang off-key while mopping my floor. I've loved you through every test, every revelation, every complicated moment, and I want to love you for the rest of my life. He opened the box. The ring was beautiful, but not ostentatious. A simple diamond in a vintage setting that looked like it had a story. It was my mother's, Alexander said softly. The only thing of value she owned. She told me to give it to someone who saw me for who I really am, not what I have. Someone who would make terrible coffee with me in janitor's closets and love me anyway. Alexander... Victoria could barely speak. Will you marry me, Victoria? Will you let me spend the rest of my life proving that I'm the man you hope to find? The kids held their breath. The whole room seemed to hold its breath. Yes, Victoria whispered, then louder, yes! The kids erupted in cheers. Alexander stood and slipped the ring on her finger, then kissed her, while children laughed and clapped around them. Best day ever, Sophie declared. They got married in Sterling Tower's rooftop garden that Victoria and Alexander had transformed into a community space. It wasn't a traditional society wedding. No 500 guests, no celebrity appearances, no magazine coverage. Instead, there were about 50 people. The kids from the hospital, healthy and happy, served as flower girls and ring bearers. James Morrison, Victoria's lawyer and friend, walked her down the aisle. Alexander's employees from his education foundation came. The new tenants of Sterling Tower, carefully vetted for kindness and character, attended. Victoria wore a simple white dress. Alexander wore a suit his mother would have been proud of. They wrote their own vows. "I promise to always see you," Victoria said, her voice steady. "To see past the surface, past the money, past the masks we all wear. I promise to trust you, to believe in you, even in moments of doubt." "I promise never to hesitate," Alexander said. "To always defend you, to always choose you, to always believe in your goodness, even when the world gives me reason to doubt. I promise to make terrible coffee with you for the rest of our lives." The crowd laughed through their tears. When they kissed, Miguel whispered loudly, "That's true love right there." He was right. Marcus Wellington, Jessica Thornton, and Daniel Rodriguez all lost their offices in Sterling Tower. The story of their cruelty spread through Manhattan's business community. Marcus's fund lost investors. Jessica's fashion line was quietly dropped by major retailers. Daniel's tech startup failed to secure funding. They had learned an expensive lesson: character matters. How you treat people when you think they can't affect you reveals everything about who you really are. Sterling Tower became known for something else: kindness. Victoria and Alexander transformed the building into a model of ethical business. They provided child care for employees, paid living wages to all staff, and created a culture where everyone, from the CEO to the janitor, was treated with respect. The real cleaning staff now had health insurance, retirement plans, and were invited to company events. Several went back to school with scholarships Victoria established. One became a lawyer. Another became a teacher. All of them thrived when given the chance. Victoria and Alexander started a foundation together, the Chen Steele Character Initiative. They funded programs that taught empathy, respect, and ethical leadership. They gave talks at business schools about the importance of treating everyone with dignity. But their favorite work was still at the Children's Hospital, where they volunteered every Tuesday evening, where they sat on the floor playing Uno, where titles and money didn't matter, where love was measured in smiles and laughter. Sophie eventually went into remission. She sent Victoria and Alexander a drawing every week, usually of them holding hands with terrible off-key music notes floating around their heads. Miguel became a motivational speaker, telling anyone who would listen about the importance of kindness. Miss Vicky and Mr. Alexander taught me that how you treat people matters more than what you own, he'd say. Aisha grew up to be a doctor. She specialized in pediatric oncology, inspired by the woman who'd sat with her during the darkest days and shown her that love was the best medicine. 5 years after their wedding, Victoria and Alexander stood in the lobby of Sterling Tower watching their teenage daughter, adopted from the very hospital where they'd met, practice her violin for her school concert. "She's better at music than we are," Alexander observed. "Everyone is better at music than we are," Victoria corrected. Their daughter stopped playing and rolled her eyes. "You guys are so embarrassing." "That's literally our job," Victoria said, kissing the top of her head. "Ask your 3 brothers, they'll confirm we're professionally embarrassing." They'd adopted 4 children total, all from challenging backgrounds. Their home was chaotic, loud, and filled with the kind of love that money couldn't buy, but character could build. "Mom," their daughter asked, "do you ever regret it, pretending to be a cleaning lady, that whole weird test thing?" Victoria looked at Alexander, who smiled back at her. "Not for a second," Victoria said. "That test taught me that real wealth isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in the people who see you when you're invisible, who defend you when you're vulnerable, who love you not for what you have, but for who you are." "That's so cheesy, Mom." "But it's true," Alexander added. "Your mom taught me that how we treat people when we have power defines our character. Some people failed that test, but failing taught them to be better." "And you passed?" their daughter asked. "Eventually," Alexander admitted, "after I messed up first. But your mom gave me a second chance." "Everyone deserves second chances," Victoria said, "as long as they learn from their mistakes." Their daughter smiled. That's actually pretty cool, even if it is cheesy. As they left the building together, Victoria, Alexander, and their daughter, the night security guard called out, "Have a good evening, Mrs. Steele." "You too, Marcus," Victoria called back. Alexander raised an eyebrow. "Marcus? As in Marcus Wellington," Victoria confirmed quietly. "He applied for the security job after his fund collapsed. He's been working here for 3 years now, showing up on time, treating everyone with respect, trying to rebuild his character." "And you hired him?" "I believe in second chances." Victoria squeezed his hand. "Someone very wise once taught me that." Marcus Wellington, former hedge fund manager, now night security guard, watched them leave. He was 40 pounds lighter, his designer suit sold off, his penthouse traded for a modest apartment in Queens. But he was happier. He'd learned what really mattered. He'd learned it the hard way, humiliated and exposed, but he'd learned. And Victoria Chen had given him a chance to prove it. Every person who entered Sterling Tower now was treated with respect by Marcus Wellington. Every cleaning crew member was greeted by name. Every delivery person was thanked sincerely. He'd failed the original test, but he was determined to pass the second one. Because Victoria Chen had taught all of them, that character isn't fixed. It can be broken, rebuilt, and strengthened, but only if you're willing to do the work. Only if you're willing to see people, all people, regardless of what they wear, what they do, or how much money they make. So tell us, what did you rate this story? From 0 to 10, tell us in the comments. And remember, real wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in how you treat people when you think nobody's watching, because someone is always watching. And character is the only currency that truly matters. What city are you watching from?